For the first time in more than 4 years, Harley-Davidson admitted to investors that its entire strategy was wrong. The shocking reason? Livewire sold just 653 electric motorcycles in 2025, despite forecasts of 101,000 by 2026. Now Harley is abandoning its old playbook, reviving a fan-favorite motorcycle, bringing manufacturing back to America, and launching a plan that could completely redefine the company's future. Number 10. The bricks are the dealers, and they're the whole plan. Everybody heard the name and assumed it meant the brick building on Juneau Avenue in Milwaukee. It does. That's the headquarters, and employees have long referred to it simply as the bricks. But that's only the symbolism. The actual strategy has very little to do with a building. It's about dealers. Here's what almost nobody outside the motorcycle industry fully understood. Harley wasn't just losing customers. It was slowly suffocating its own dealer network. For years, the factory pushed motorcycles onto showroom floors faster than dealers could realistically sell them, forcing dealerships to carry more inventory than the market demanded. Those motorcycles weren't free. Dealers had to floor plan that inventory, borrowing money to pay for bikes sitting under showroom lights and paying interest every month until they finally sold. The longer a motorcycle sat unsold, the more it cost the dealer. That financial pressure squeezed margins, tied up cash, and, in many cases, pushed dealerships toward closure. It wasn't a lack of passion for Harley-Davidson that closed stores. It was a business model that made dealers pay to warehouse excess inventory. So the first pillar of the new plan isn't simply selling more motorcycles. It's making dealerships healthier and more profitable. Harley has attached a very specific target to that goal. Dealers should double their profitability in 2026, then double it again by 2029. Those are ambitious numbers, but the company has already started making changes to support them. Now here's the part that proves it isn't just another corporate promise. During the first quarter of 2026, new motorcycle inventory sitting at dealerships fell 22% compared with a year earlier. By the end of the second quarter, more than 85% of the motorcycles on dealer floors were current 2026 models, rather than aging inventory carried over from previous model years. That means less money tied up in unsold stock, lower financing costs for dealers, fresher inventory for customers, and fewer desperate clearance sales just to free up cash. If you've ever walked into a dealership and seen a 3-year-old motorcycle wearing a massive discount sticker because nobody wanted it, you've seen the disease. This is the cure. And once you understand that, almost everything else on this list suddenly makes sense. And this next one explains why. Number 9. The electric dream got quietly moved off the table. Let's go back to that number, because it deserves a second look. In all of 2025, Livewire delivered just 653 electric motorcycles globally. Its motorcycle division generated about $6.1 million in revenue, while posting roughly $73.8 million in operating losses. Read that again. Losses were more than 12 times revenue. That's not simply an unprofitable business. It's a business operating on a scale far too small to support the investment being poured into it. Now, credit where it's due. The second quarter of 2026 was actually Livewire's strongest performance in years. It sold 267 electric motorcycles, compared with just 55 during the same quarter of 2025. Motorcycle revenue climbed from $800,000 to $3.6 million, while the net loss narrowed slightly to $18.2 million. Those are genuine improvements, and they show that demand is moving in the right direction. But look at what those improved numbers actually represent. 267 motorcycles. Harley's core motorcycle business shipped 39,209 units during that same quarter. Even after its best quarter in years, Livewire remained tiny compared with the business carrying the Harley-Davidson name. So back to the bricks did something the previous leadership almost certainly never would have done. It moved Livewire away from the center of the story. The electric brand hasn't disappeared. It's still raising up to $50 million in new capital. It still has a $75 million credit line from the parent company. And in May, 2026, it expanded its ambitions by acquiring the off-road electric brand Dust Motorcycles. But it is no longer the future Harley is betting the farm on. Instead, it's being treated as one business within a much larger portfolio, rather than the centerpiece of the company's identity. That's not a small change. That's a company publicly admitting that the future it once presented as inevitable isn't. And that leads us directly to the next example. Number 8. The revenue crash that isn't actually a crash. This is the one that will confuse you if you only read the headlines, and it's worth getting right, because it completely changes how you should read every Harley story from here. Second quarter, 2026. Consolidated revenue of $1.23 billion, down 6%. Net income of $80 million, down 26% from $108 million a year earlier. On the surface, those numbers sound like a company losing momentum, with shrinking sales and weaker profits. If that's all you saw, you'd probably assume Harley's problems were getting worse. They aren't. Look underneath the headline figures. The motorcycle business, the part of the company that actually designs, builds, and sells motorcycles, grew. Revenue climbed 6% to $1.1 billion. Operating income increased 18% to $72 million. Global shipments rose 9%. North American retail sales climbed 3%, marking the third consecutive quarter of year-over-year growth in Harley's most important market. Those aren't the numbers of a motorcycle division in decline. So where did the overall drop come from? Harley-Davidson Financial Services. Its revenue fell 55%. Its operating income dropped 69%. And here's the kicker. That wasn't a business collapsing. It was the direct result of a deliberate financial decision. Harley sold roughly $6 billion of retail loan receivables, along with a 9.8% equity stake in its financing arm, to KKR and PIMCO. HDFS went from being a capital-intensive lending business to a leaner, lower-risk operation with far less money tied up on its balance sheet. That transaction also generated a $1 billion dividend that flowed back to the parent company during the fourth quarter of 2025, providing capital to support the broader turnaround strategy. Translation: Harley effectively sold part of the bank to help fund the turnaround. The revenue line looks weaker, not because the core motorcycle business deteriorated, but because the balance sheet became significantly healthier. Next on the list is a name you might recognize. Before we continue, everything in this video comes straight from Ride Longer, Spend Less, the complete motorcycle maintenance handbook. The full system, every step and every number we couldn't fit here. Scan the QR code on your screen to get your copy, and let's get back to it. Number 7. Tariffs are costing Harley real money right now. Here's something that catches people off guard. Harley builds the overwhelming majority of its big bikes in the United States, and yet it's still getting hammered by import tariffs. In the first quarter of 2026 alone, tariff-related costs came in at $45 million. For the full year, Harley now expects those costs to land somewhere between $75 and $90 million. That's actually the good news version. The company's earlier estimate was as high as $105 million, so the financial hit has eased, but it's still substantial. Why does an American manufacturer pay this? Because a modern motorcycle is not a 1970s motorcycle built almost entirely from domestic components. Today's bikes rely on a global supply chain. Semiconductors, ride mode controllers, ABS modules, traction control units, TFT display electronics, sensors, and countless other specialized components come from suppliers around the world, no matter where the frame gets welded or the engine gets assembled. You can build a street glide in York, Pennsylvania, stamp the words "Made in America" on the finished motorcycle, and still be exposed to tariffs on many of the parts that went into it. And this is where it stops being a Harley story. Every major manufacturer selling motorcycles in the United States is wrestling with the exact same economic reality, including Honda, Triumph, BMW, Royal Enfield, Kawasaki, Yamaha, Ducati, virtually all of them. When you look at the price tag on a new motorcycle and wonder why it costs thousands more than a similar bike did only a few years ago, this is a significant part of the answer. But Harley didn't simply absorb the problem. It found a way to respond to it. And that decision is the reason number 4 on this list exists at all. Coming in next is something many people overlook. Number 6. The 2026 lineup quietly solved the price problem. While everyone was arguing about strategy, leadership changes, and corporate direction, Harley quietly made a series of product moves that barely got the attention they deserved. 13 new or updated models were revealed on January 14, 2026, marking the second chapter of the model year rollout and showing that the company wasn't simply cutting costs, it was actively reshaping its lineup. The Street Glide Limited and Road Glide Limited both start at $32,999, powered by the Milwaukee 8 VVT117, that is, 1,923 cubic centimeters, rated at 106 horsepower, at 4,600 revolutions per minute, and 131 pound-feet of torque, at 3,250 revolutions per minute. They also went on a diet. The Street Glide Limited shed 24 pounds compared with its predecessor, while the Road Glide Limited lost 13, improving performance and handling without sacrificing the touring capability buyers expect. But the smarter move happened at the opposite end of the price ladder. Harley introduced a solo trim package, featuring a solo seat, dark billiard gray paint, and cast aluminum wheels, across 3 models, and it pulled entry prices down in a meaningful way. The Street Bob starts at $14,999. The Heritage Classic comes in at $19,999, and the Street Glide starts at $24,999. That is a Street Glide, an actual Batwing-fared Harley touring motorcycle, for under $25,000, something that would have seemed highly unlikely just a few years ago. Meanwhile, the entire cruiser family now runs the Milwaukee 8 117, but not as a one-size-fits-all engine. Harley offers it in 3 different states of tune, with different intake and exhaust systems, different cam profiles, and different ride mode programming to give each motorcycle its own distinct personality. Same engine, 3 personalities. 1 powertrain, 1 supply chain, 1 set of tooling. Remember that idea, because it's the mechanical logic that makes number 2 possible. Now let us move to the next entry on the list. Number 5. Harley is going racing on the MotoGP weekend. Nobody saw this coming, and it might be the most culturally aggressive thing Harley has done in decades. The Harley-Davidson Bagger World Cup debuts in 2026, co-developed with MotoGP and Dorna Sports. The championship will feature 6 rounds across North America and Europe, with races on both Saturday and Sunday as part of the regular MotoGP weekend schedule, before concluding with a championship-deciding finale at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Now sit with the absurdity of that for a second. MotoGP is the absolute pinnacle of 2-wheeled engineering, 300 km/h prototypes fitted with carbon brakes, aerodynamic winglets, seamless shift gearboxes, and ridden by some of the most gifted racers on the planet. And Harley is putting full-size, hard-bagged American touring motorcycles on that very same schedule. They're based on the Grand American Touring platform, heavily race-tuned and stripped for competition, but still fundamentally recognizable as the same motorcycles your neighbor rides to Sturgis every summer. This is not about winning a technical argument. It's about a sound. It's about a Road Glide shape machine leaning through Mugello with a thunderous V-twin echoing off the hills, in front of a European audience that has spent 30 years dismissing Harley as a lifestyle brand for people who don't ride hard. King of the Baggers proved the format works in America, drawing huge crowds and turning heavyweight touring bikes into genuine racing machines. This takes that concept global, putting the unmistakable Harley-Davidson silhouette in front of millions of MotoGP viewers who otherwise would never have walked past a Harley dealership. Now, we move to something completely different. Number 4. Production is coming home from Thailand. On June 9, 2026, Harley announced it is pulling Revolution Max production for North America out of Thailand and bringing it back to the United States. And this isn't a token gesture or a symbolic headline designed to generate positive press. The move covers machining, powertrain assembly, painting, and final vehicle assembly, relocating production to Harley facilities in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. It applies to 3 major model families: the Pan America Adventure Bike, the Sportster S, and the Nightster. The entire transition is scheduled to be completed before model year 2028 production begins in 2027, making this one of the company's biggest manufacturing shifts in years. Here's the figure that shows the scale. Harley expects to build more than 100,000 motorcycles out of the York, Pennsylvania plant in 2027, turning it back into the center of its North American manufacturing operation. Now understand what this actually reverses. In 2024, Harley moved that work offshore, a decision that infuriated the Machinists' Union and quickly became a lightning rod for a brand whose entire identity is built around the words, "Made in America." Riders noticed immediately. Dealers heard about it from customers almost every day. For many longtime owners, it became the shorthand for everything they believed had gone wrong with the company's direction. Harley cited changes in U.S. trade policy and the shifting global trade environment as the reason bringing production home had once again become financially viable. Bill Davidson, the great-grandson of co-founder William A. Davidson, framed the decision as getting back to the bricks and reconnecting the company with its manufacturing roots. Whatever the accounting reason, the practical result is the same. The engine inside a Pan America is about to be built by American hands again, and that decision sets up the next two announcements, the ones that actually change what riders can afford to buy. The next entry shows just how far this idea can go. Number 3. The cheapest Harley in modern history is coming. Meet the Sprint. It's built on the 440 cubic centimeter, oil-cooled single-cylinder platform Harley developed with Hero MotoCorp in India, the same architecture underneath the X440, which launched there in 2023. That means roughly 27 horsepower, 28 pound-feet of torque, Ichama, a 6-speed gearbox, a tubular steel frame, and a platform that's already been proven in real-world riding rather than existing only as a prototype. But the Sprint is not a rebadged X440. The teaser silhouettes show a completely different motorcycle. Instead of the upright roadster proportions of the X440, the Sprint adopts a lower, longer, stretched-out cruiser stance. A classic teardrop fuel tank flows into a deeply scooped seat that appears noticeably lower than the X440's 31.7-inch perch. Up front is a round headlamp, wide handlebars, traditional rear fender, and proportions that immediately resemble a scaled-down Harley cruiser rather than an inexpensive commuter motorcycle wearing Harley badges. The design language is unmistakably Harley-Davidson, just packaged for a smaller displacement audience. Global debut is expected later this year. More importantly, it will become the first Hero-built Harley exported outside India since the partnership began, marking a significant shift in Harley's international strategy. Instead of treating the Hero collaboration as an India-only project, the company is now using it as the foundation for expanding into entry-level markets around the world. Now the price, and this is where honesty matters. The number that got quoted almost everywhere was around $6,000. Since then, some reporting has suggested that the original sub-$6,000 target may no longer be realistic, with Harley instead aiming for a US price below $10,000. The final figure won't be known until launch, but wherever it lands, it's expected to sit well below the price of most traditional Harley models and remain highly competitive against bikes like the Kawasaki Eliminator at $6,499. Whatever the final sticker says, the strategic point doesn't change. A Harley-badged cruiser priced to compete with Royal Enfield, Honda, Kawasaki, and other entry-level brands simply hasn't existed in the modern era. Instead of asking first-time riders to stretch their budget into a middleweight Harley, the company is finally giving them a motorcycle that can compete where many people actually begin shopping. That is a completely different customer walking through the dealership door. But that is only part of the story. Number 2. 20 new models in 36 months. This is the line that got lost in most of the coverage, and it's the one that should make every competitor nervous. Harley intends to introduce roughly 20 new models within the next 36 months. For a company that spent the last several years shrinking its catalog, discontinuing familiar nameplates, and walking away from entry-level motorcycles, that's a dramatic reversal. Just a year ago, the conversation was about simplification and consolidation. Now it's about expansion. On the surface, 20 new motorcycles sounds like the kind of product offensive you'd expect from a company with unlimited resources. And the obvious objection is cost. New models usually mean new development programs, new tooling, years of engineering work, supplier contracts, factory changes, and enormous capital investment. For a business that was reporting declining revenue not long ago, that sounds almost impossible until you look at how Harley actually plans to do it. And then there is this. Except that's not how Harley plans to do it. Stars was explicit about the method. By using and leveraging existing powertrains and existing platforms, Harley can build a much broader assortment of motorcycles without starting from scratch every time. Instead of designing completely new engines and chassis, the company intends to maximize what it already has. That's exactly what you saw in number 6, one Milwaukee 8 117, offered in 3 different states of tune across 6 cruisers. One 440 platform spawning multiple motorcycles. One Revolution Max engine family underpinning 3 separate model lines. The strategy isn't about inventing 20 completely new motorcycles. It's about creating 20 new products from a much smaller number of proven building blocks. That approach dramatically reduces development costs while getting new bikes into dealerships faster. It also gives Harley the flexibility to respond to changing demand without committing to expensive, clean sheet projects every time a new market opportunity appears. The financial target attached to that strategy is equally concrete. More than $350 million in motorcycle division earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization by 2027, driven by mid-single-digit retail growth, improved profit margins, and continued cost reductions across the business. And Harley just raised its own guidance to back it up. Full-year retail sales are now projected between 133,500 and 138,500 units, up from the previous forecast of 130,000 to 135,000. Motorcycle division operating income has also been revised dramatically, moving from an expected $40 million loss to a projected range of $10 to $50 million in profit. Management still calls 2026 a transition year. The guidance suggests that transition is already moving in the right direction. But the story does not end there. Number 1, the AIR-cooled Sportster is coming back. In 2022, Harley killed the Sportster. The official reason was that making the air-cooled Evolution engine comply with Euro 5+ emissions simply wasn't economically viable anymore. What replaced it was the Sportster S, liquid-cooled, powered by the Revolution Max 1250, faster, more refined, and technically superior in almost every measurable way. On paper, it was everything a modern performance motorcycle was supposed to be, and to a huge portion of the Harley faithful, it was a Sportster in name only, because the Sportster was never about horsepower. It was 1957 architecture, a 45-degree air-cooled pushrod V-twin you could see working, you could hear from 3 streets away, and you could rebuild in your own garage with basic hand tools. It wasn't the fastest bike Harley ever made, but that was never the point. The Iron 883 was, for hundreds of thousands of riders, the first Harley they ever owned, the bike that introduced them to the brand, and often the motorcycle they kept long after buying something bigger. It's coming back for 2027, air-cooled. And Stars confirmed the detail that decides everything. It uses the 883, not the 1200. The Evolution-style architecture returns with visible pushrods, the circular airbox lifted straight from the Iron 883 silhouette, plus a 2-up seat, a lower seat height, and a thicker instrument module suggesting a digital display, USB charging, and other modern conveniences hidden beneath a classic design. The target price is around $10,000. The 2022 Iron 883 stickered at $10,749. So after 5 years of brutal inflation, rising material costs, and higher manufacturing expenses across the industry, it comes back cheaper in nominal dollars and dramatically cheaper in real ones. Stars said it was the single most requested motorcycle from riders and dealers in every market on Earth: Louisville, Frankfurt, Shanghai. That wasn't one country's nostalgia talking. It was the same message coming from customers around the world. And for American buyers, there's another important detail. US bikes will once again be built in York, Pennsylvania. Remember the company from the start of this video, the one that lost 14% of its revenue, closed dealerships and sold 653 electric motorcycles against a forecast of 101,000? That company just admitted the answer wasn't some revolutionary new technology. It was sitting behind it the whole time. Enjoyed this explanation? Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned.